Please note that the content of this video may contain errors. If you would like to view subtitles, please click the subtitle button at the bottom right of the screen. Now let's begin our theme, the life of Okada Izo. Through the turbulent life of Okada Izo, we will unravel the turmoil of the late Edo period and his role. Japan at the end of the Edo period, a time when the old order was in turmoil and a new era was approaching. From the late 18th century to the mid-19th century, enormous changes occurred around the world. Japan was not immune to these changes. In 1853, Commodore Perry's fleet, known as the Black Ships, appeared in Uraga. This event severely shook the Japanese system. This event marked the end of Japan's long policy of isolation and marked the beginning of a shift toward opening up the country. So why was the shogunate so shaken? In the late 18th century, America entered the Industrial Revolution and began to seek to expand its foreign trade. The U.S. Navy's expeditions led by Perry strongly reflected the U.S. government's desire for trade with Japan. The arrival of Perry's fleet led the shogunate to become concerned about national defense. At the time, Japan lagged far behind Western powers in terms of national defense and trade skills. This concern would later trigger a transformation of Japan's political system. The impact of Perry's arrival spread not only to the shogunate, but also to feudal domains throughout the country. The shogunate's authority began to waver. This became an opportunity for powerful local feudal lords and patriots to pave the way for the Meiji Restoration. Many patriots actively discussed topics such as expelling foreigners and opening the country to the world. At the same time, powerful domains such as the Satsuma and Choshu clans also actively embarked on the creation of a new nation. Ideological movements also gained influence. As the idea of revering the emperor and expelling the barbarians spread, movements calling for a return to a national system centered on the emperor became active throughout the country. This was likely the result of Japanese society, which had long been rooted in Confucian values of loyalty, searching for its own identity amidst a turbulent global situation. After the arrival of Perry's Black Ships, Japan entered a period of great change known as the end of the Edo period. From this time, many patriots rose to prominence. Among them were many who would later become famous. Their activities would eventually rewrite the course of Japanese history. Izo Okada was born in 1838 in the countryside of the Tosa domain. His family was a farming family and not particularly wealthy, so he worked from an early age. However, even in this modest lifestyle, Izo developed incredible physical strength and athleticism. This would have a profound impact on his later life. As a boy, Izo's honest and simple nature earned him the affection of those around him. There are stories of him honing his fighting skills by playing pretend fights with neighborhood children while helping with the family business. It was the end of the Edo period, a time of uncertainty throughout Japan. The situation within the domain was also undergoing drastic change. Izo's insight into things gradually became sharper. As the son of a farmer, it was important for him to use his strength to survive. The Okada family did not receive the same education as the average samurai or merchant, but his inquisitive nature did not prevent him. He learned from the adults around him and eagerly absorbed new knowledge. In 1854, with the signing of the Treaty of Peace and Amity between Japan and the United States, Japan began to open up to the world under external pressure. Behind the scenes, the country's traditional system began to shake and unrest spread throughout society. It was during this time that Izo encountered individuals with ambitions that transcended the domain and was deeply influenced by them. It was precisely because of his limited education that he possessed a free-thinking nature. He was deeply moved by the passion of these patriots. Eventually, he had a fateful encounter with Takeshi Hanpeda, a particularly influential figure within the Tosa domain. Takeshi formed the Tosa Kino party and worked to recruit comrades who shared his country's concerns. Izo was deeply attracted to Takeshi's skillful and passionate approach. As a young man from a rural area, the prospect of being part of the cause of a new era filled him with excitement. The name Hanpeda Takeshi evokes a sense of respect in many. One reason for this is his exceptional leadership skills. One person inspired by this leadership was a young man named Izo Okada. He originally came from a rural area and, while harboring ideals, he didn't know how to put them into practice. However, his encounter with Hanpeda marked his transformation into the assassin Izo. The power dynamics within the Tosa domain were complex, and Hanpeda, with his strong pro-imperial views, aimed to reform the domain. To achieve this, he needed loyal and driven comrades. For Izo to fulfill this role, a change in his mindset was necessary. Hanpeda's strong influence made this possible. The reputation of Izo the assassin spread thanks to Izo's swordsmanship and bold actions. The reputation of Izo the assassin was spread thanks to Izo's swordsmanship and bold actions. Hanpeda found himself faced with inevitable conflicts and purges both within and outside his domain, and needed to eliminate his political enemies. Izo was given this role because Hanpeda, more than anyone, recognized his potential. Izo's reputation was solidified by an assassination attempt in the Hikone domain. This incident spread his name throughout Edo, and more people feared him. However, this was not simply violence. It was the method Hanpeda chose to force a change in the times. Izo himself never denied that he acted according to his convictions. In fact, he was proud of it. Even seemingly beautiful ideas like morality and a sense of justice were driven by hidden interests and dangers. Amidst this turmoil, Okada Izo chose not to be consumed as a mere military asset. He chose to become a symbol of an era. His actions, truly a historic phenomenon, left a vivid impression on many people. Okada Izo became involved with an organization known as the Tosa Party. The Tosa Party was formed by patriots from the Tosa domain, advocating the idea of reverence for the emperor and expulsion of foreigners. At the center of this organization was Takeshi Hanpeda, who would later become a figure on a par with Sakamoto Ryoma. Inspired by his ideas, Izo decided to act as a patriot of expulsion of foreigners. The Tosa Party gained prominence through radical actions from the very beginning. Their goal was to expel foreign powers from Japan and establish a political system centered on the emperor. However, to achieve this, they had to clearly demonstrate their stance toward the shogunate and foreigners of the time. Okada Izo became famous for his use of assassination. Izo was nicknamed Izo the Assassin due to his swordsmanship. He was involved in many assassinations as part of the Tosa Party's execution force. His sword was sometimes used to resolve conflicts within the domain and to eliminate political enemies. Details of this have been revealed, including from testimonies given after his capture. Some aspects remain a mystery. One theory holds that Izo acted on the orders of Takeshi Hanpeda. Another theory holds that it is said that his actions were based on Izo's own judgment, not the machinations of the Tosa Party. However, as their activities intensified, Izo and his men came to the attention of the shogunate, which began cracking down on them. Even under the noble cause of expelling foreigners, Izo's actions were always accompanied by danger. While Izo's actions certainly contributed to the change of the era, the reality was extremely harsh. There are even anecdotes that he nearly lost his life multiple times. In fact, Izo was forced to flee many times, each time narrowly escaping death. When the Tosa Party reached its peak, a delicate balance emerged between the imperial court and the shogunate. Izo and his men were forced to change their actions. However, by that point, his name had already become too famous. He had to constantly consider how to navigate his surroundings, and his relationships of trust with those around him were also put to the test. After spending his youth in Tosa, Okada Izo, he became a member of the Tosa Party and devoted himself to the Sano Joy movement. However, his real-life exploits didn't begin until he began carrying out assassination missions in Kyoto. Under the direction of his former leader, Takeshi Hanpeda, Izo was involved in the assassinations of numerous important figures. The end of the Edo period was a time of political chaos throughout Japan, and Kyoto in particular was a hub of conflict between the imperial court and the shogunate. Furthermore, various forces surrounding these forces crowded together. Amid this chaotic historical backdrop, Okada Izo came to be known as a Hidakiri assassin. His targets were those considered to be harmful to the shogunate and the loyalist faction. And it was not simply a case of following orders, it was driven by Izo's own loyalty and strong will. Behind Izo's assassination efforts lay the political strategy of the Tosa. Their goal was to establish themselves as a force opposing the shogunate. And to achieve this, he needed to be prepared to resort to extreme measures. Izo's role as an assassin was part of this strategy. He gradually improved his skills and gradually became famous. However, while Izo's assassination was successful, fears for him grew stronger with each passing day. Soon, Izo, the loyal servant, became the focus of attention, and anyone who tried to get close to him began to closely monitor his movements. "I'll be keeping a close eye on his movements." As a result, his movements gradually became more restricted, and he began to live in a life of terror from which he could no longer escape. His arrest marked a major turning point in his fate. At the time, the shogunate aimed to dismantle organizations by capturing and rigorously interrogating patriots operating in the shadows. One day, Izo became a wanted target and was eventually captured. Although Izo endured severe torture in prison, the information he possessed was important and valuable to the shogunate. This arrest marked a major turning point in Izo's life. The role he played and the price he paid would eventually change his own destiny. The day Okada Izo was captured was a day that would dramatically change his fate. As the activities of the Tosa-Kino party attracted attention during the turbulent times of the late Edo period, Izo's actions also received repercussions. The information he possessed was extremely valuable to the shogunate, so his capture led to. The shogunate relentlessly interrogated him in an attempt to extract information from him. During this interrogation, various torture methods of the time were used, and their brutality is still talked about today. The most difficult aspect of his imprisonment, even more so than the physical restraints and torture, was the pressure to betray his comrades. In particular, as the condemnation of those involved in the assassination of Toyo Yoshida was progressing, Izo's information was invaluable. As a result of this, many people lost their lives or had their lives significantly altered. His condition in prison gradually worsened, gradually eroding not only his body, but also his mind. However, as a member of the Tosa-Kino party, selling out his comrades was an unthinkable choice for Izo. This conflict grew within Izo and continued to torment him. The shogunate's goal was not just to punish Izo, but to destroy the Tosa-Kino party itself. The shogunate's goal was not just to punish Izo, but to destroy the Tosa-Kinoto itself. This cast an even darker shadow over Izo's choice. Furthermore, while in prison, he was isolated from his fellow Tosa-Kino party patriots. Maintaining their trust was also one of his struggles. Some believed that loyalty should be demonstrated even with death, and this severe mental tension further pushed Izo's mind into a corner. Thus, Okada Izo's imprisonment was extremely difficult not only physically but also psychologically and spiritually. But even so, he continued to fight, steadfast in his beliefs to the very end. This has shaped his image in the eyes of future generations and is the reason he remains a legend. Okada Izo, who pushed forward during the turbulent end of the Edo period. Ultimately, his loyalty and convictions led to his standing in judgment. His ruthless swordplay and fearsome reputation were now about to be turned against him. Izo's trial unfolded amid a swirling tide of many people's intentions and schemes. The shogunate hoped to restore its own authority by making an example of someone like Izo, who advocated for reverence for the emperor and expulsion of foreigners. By making an example of someone like him, who advocated for reverence for the emperor and expulsion of foreigners. During this period, the shogunate was deeply concerned that its own position was being shaken by the loss of its authority and the unrest of the various feudal domains. He was deeply concerned that his position was being shaken. Another important goal was to use the captured Izo to extract information about the Tosa-Kino party, to which he belonged, and those lurking behind it. How much Izo himself revealed under torture remains a matter of debate. On the other hand, there is a strong belief that he knew nothing, and it is unclear how much information he actually provided. Amidst these many conflicting interests, the decision was made to execute Izo. In 1865, after spending days in a dark prison, his fateful moment finally arrived. His end, having remained true to his beliefs amidst the turmoil of war. It can be said that it was a proud death for a samurai. Many people witnessed Izo's execution and witnessed his fate. Although his life was lost, the impact of his life and death has left a lasting impression on generations to come. The fate of a swordsman living during the turbulent end of the Edo period is a tragic story woven by the tides of the times and his own choices. The insights people will discover in this tragic story are immeasurable. After his death, Okada Izo's reputation has changed in many ways. His life became legendary due to his exceptional skills as a master swordsman and his exploits as an assassin. His life was marked by his exceptional swordsmanship and his exploits as an assassin. He became legendary. During the turbulent times of the late Edo period, many patriots risked their lives to carve out a new era. His presence shone with a unique light. The Tosa-Kino party, to which he belonged, engaged in radical military activities. Behind these activities lay the grand goal of overthrowing the shogunate. Izo chose the path of an assassin as a means to achieve this goal. After Izo's death, stories of his unconventional lifestyle and terrifying assassination continued to circulate, influencing many creative works. However, at the same time, there was much criticism of his way of life and his reputation has been divided. To many, he is seen as both a symbol of wanton violence and a man of dual personalities, a pure and insane patriot who sought to overthrow the shogunate. Furthermore, after Izo's death, documents and records documenting his activities have gradually been liberated from their past political context. There has been an ongoing movement to uncover his true character as an individual. Current research is exploring the circumstances that led him to become an assassin and his inner thoughts. In this context, Izo is being portrayed as an even more multifaceted character. What we can learn from his life, at the risk of his own life, is the difficulty of exercising power. Perhaps it is the human condition at the mercy of the turbulent times. In any case, the mark left on history by the swordsman Okada Izo continues to fascinate many people today. It continues to fascinate many people today. Let's reconsider the chaos and humanity of the late Edo period through the life of Okada Izo. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and rate it.